I once laughed and said cheating is only wrong if you are caught. I thought it was a clever line, something to make my friends laugh and make my husband look uptight. But then he pulled out photos and proof, and suddenly the joke became the end of everything. My name is Evadne Mercer. I am 32 years old, and until that night, I believed I was clever enough to outsmart everyone. My husband Jonas is 35, quiet and patient, the kind of man who never raises his voice but never forgets either. We have 2 children, Lydia, who is 7, and Owen, who is 4, both too young to understand why the air in our home had turned heavy and sharp. To them, Daddy was just tired and Mommy was just loud. To me, I was still the one in control. When Jonas started withdrawing, when he stopped arguing and simply listened, I thought it meant he was weak. I bragged to friends that he would never leave, that he needed me more than I needed him. I told my mother that he was too rigid and jealous, while my father warned me that I was humiliating him in ways no man would tolerate forever. My sister Rachel gave me quiet looks, but I brushed them off. I believed my own story, that what Jonas saw as betrayal was just me keeping life exciting, and that I could always talk my way out of anything. I did not realize his silence was not surrender, it was preparation, and by the time I saw the evidence he carried, it was already too late. It started at a downtown restaurant, the kind of place where everyone knew us, and the tables were always too close together. I liked those nights because I could turn stories into entertainment, make myself the center of the room. That evening, I wanted to look bold, so when the talk turned to relationships, I smirked and said cheating was only wrong if you were caught. People laughed, some nervously, some loudly, but I felt the rush of attention. I leaned into it, pointing at Jonas as if he were too uptight, saying he worried too much about things that did not matter. He stayed silent, his face calm, his glass in his hand. I took his quietness as victory and went further, making him the joke, painting myself as the playful one and him as the rigid one. My friends looked at him with pity, but I ignored it. I told myself he was sulking, that he had no answer because he knew I was right. Later at home, he did not argue, did not even mention what I had said. He just went to bed early, and I laughed to myself, telling my mother later that he was acting like a child. She told me I was right, that men could not handle a clever wife. My father overheard and said I was humiliating him, but I brushed it off. I thought silence meant weakness. What I did not see was the way Jonas's eyes followed me at that restaurant, not with anger but with focus, as if he were memorizing every word. I noticed later that he left early that night, quietly settling the bill without saying anything. I thought it was petty. What I did not know was that it was the first step of his plan. At home, the silence grew heavier, but I convinced myself it meant nothing. Jonas spent more time in his study, papers stacked neatly on the desk, and when I asked what he was working on, he only said it was business. I rolled my eyes and told my mother he was being dramatic. She agreed quickly, saying men like him always tried to punish women when they felt insecure. My father did not share her view. He said Jonas had the patience of a saint and warned me that patience runs out when respect is gone. I told him he was exaggerating. My sister Rachel asked me quietly if I really thought my joke was harmless. I snapped at her, saying she was jealous of me, and she stopped asking. The children noticed the difference too. Lydia asked why Daddy never laughed anymore, and I told her he was just tired. Owen clung to me more, but I brushed it off as a phase. At night, Jonas stayed up long after I went to bed. Once I woke up and found him at the dining table with his phone, holding mine in one hand and his in the other. He placed mine back exactly where I had left it and said he had only checked the time. I pretended to believe him, but inside I felt a small wave of unease. I told myself he was bluffing, that he had nothing real, but something about his calmness unsettled me. He was not questioning me anymore. He was watching, and that made me nervous in a way I did not want to admit. Work became my hiding place, or at least that was how I treated it. In the break room, I would lean against the counter and check my phone, smiling when Callum's name appeared. He was just a man I had met months before, someone who made me feel noticed, and I told myself it was harmless. When Jonas grew distant, I told myself Callum filled the gap. I never thought of it as betrayal, because I had convinced myself that words on a screen did not count. When Rachel asked again if I was still in contact with someone else, I laughed and told her she worried too much. I called Jonas boring and serious, insisting I needed a little fun. She said nothing, but the look on her face told me she no longer believed me. At dinner with my parents, the tension broke. My father asked me directly if I was being faithful. I told him Jonas exaggerated everything, that he was too cold and rigid. My mother quickly defended me, saying I had every right to laugh and keep life exciting. Jonas sat at the table in silence, eating slowly, never interrupting. I mocked him for refusing to speak, saying it proved my point, but then he did something I had not expected. He lifted a folder from beside his chair and placed it on the table. He never opened it, never explained it, just rested his hand on it for a moment before standing and leaving. The room stayed quiet after he walked out. I forced a laugh and said he was being dramatic again, but no one laughed with me. Even my mother stayed silent this time, her eyes flickering toward the folder that he had carried away. I tried to ignore the weight of what I had just seen, but deep down I knew the game had changed. At the next gathering, I repeated my line that cheating was only wrong if you were caught, expecting laughter. Instead, Jonas opened his folder and slid out photos and messages, proof laid out in front of everyone. The room went silent. My sister whispered it was shameful. My father looked furious, and even my mother could not defend me when she saw the dates. I tried to laugh it off, but no one believed me. Jonas calmly said he had already spoken with a lawyer and walked out, leaving me exposed. The lawyer's office felt like a courtroom. Jonas sat calm while the mediator laid out custody papers, bank records, and printed messages. I argued that I was being punished for words, not actions, that I only wanted attention because Jonas was distant. But the evidence showed money spent on Callum and messages that continued well into our marriage. My mother tried to defend me but faltered when she saw the dates. My father said Jonas was right to protect himself and the children. Rachel stayed silent, her eyes down, too ashamed to speak. I tried to twist the story, painting myself as the victim, but the mediator only pointed back to the papers. Jonas never raised his voice. He said the children deserve stability, and the proof of my behavior spoke louder than anything I could claim. For the first time, I felt that words alone could not save me. The final mediation was held at my parents' house. Jonas laid out the agreement. Custody would lean to him, finances protected, and my visits limited. I pleaded that it was harmless fun, but no one listened. My father said Jonas had shown dignity. Rachel turned away in disgust, and even my mother stayed quiet. Jonas signed the papers, shook his lawyer's hand, and walked out without a glance at me. The man I mocked as weak left stronger than ever, and I was left sitting in silence with nothing to say. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city are you watching